And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
All right, roll call, everybody. All right, this morning we're going to be talking about NYPD's Detective Exodus. I figured who's better to speak about Detective Exodus than former detectives. So we got with us our good friend Marlon Bethel and again Mike Smith, both former detectives to kick it around. Mike, what's up, brother?
What's up, man? How was everybody?
Good. Yeah.
So listen, just a little update on Eric's and his son Derek. Eric's still out in Laguna Beach. We're hoping that he's able to join us on Wednesday. We'll see. It's up to him. He'll be in and out depending on what his needs be. But just a big shout out to Newsmax and also to News Nation. They did 2 segments with Eric. We're going to play you one right now, which is the Newsmax interview. And then when we end today, we'll end on his News Nation interview. So let's just start. Let's pay a little tribute to Derek and Eric, and then we're gonna get into this Detective Exodus.
All right, coming up, a young boy and his battle against a brutal disease has uprooted his family and pulled on America's heartstrings. It's gone viral. We'll report on his story. The boy's father joins us for an exclusive interview next. You're watching Saturday Agenda. Well, as every parent can tell you, all you want is to watch your children grow up and be healthy. But sadly, each year, 15,000 kids are diagnosed with cancer. That's the situation retired NYPD Lieutenant Eric Dim and his wife Louisa find themselves in as their 8-year-old son Derek is battling a rare form of brain cancer. The Dims have put every penny of their savings into Derek's treatment. And Eric Dim joins us right now to talk about this. First off, let me just say I am incredibly sorry for the ordeal that you and your family are going through. I can't even imagine it right now. I know from what I read, it started when you guys kind of retired and you sold your home. You wanted to take a wonderful family trip going through Asia. And then you noticed something, right, that wasn't right with Derek. What was that?
So sure, I retired from the NYPD as a lieutenant, and I didn't spend much time at home. Being a cop, you're always working constantly around the clock. And I decided when I retired, we're taking an adventure. We're going to spend time together as a family unit and really get to see my children and my wife. So we did a short stint in an RV going around along the East Coast. And I said, you know what? We're headed to Asia. We started to backpack in Asia, checked all the boxes. We got very spiritual into Buddhism. I'm a big avid for jiu-jitsu. And I got Derek into jiu-jitsu. So there we were having the time of our lives. We went backpacking through Thailand. I even competed in Malaysia. And we headed for Bali. And in Bali, we were just so elated. It was amazing. And we set ourselves in. We got a villa. And life was great. We were doing school there. And then, sure enough, our lives changed in seconds.
Yeah, how? What did you notice?
So at the end of February last year, Derek started to get succumbed with headaches. And normally, Derek never complains of anything. Just a strong kid, loves life, great artist, does jiu-jitsu. And my wife and I knew something's wrong. He started to complain about headaches. But like any parent, like, suck it up, you'll be okay. But then after a couple of days, we said, you know what, something's not right. Derek doesn't complain. And he was pointing to the top of his head, not to the side of his head. So we knew something was wrong. So we decided we took him to a clinic. And there, they said, he seems okay. They kind of brushed it off. They were so nice, but they did some blood work. And it appeared everything was okay. And we went home, and we were actually headed for Singapore to do a visa jump that morning at 5 a.m. And we received a text through WhatsApp. In Asia, everything's through WhatsApp. That Derek had a bacterial infection, but not to be alarmed. But my wife and I knew something's wrong. So we decided not to do the visa jump. We went to the hospital in Bali. And within several hours, they found it and he was diagnosed.
With what?
He was diagnosed with a rare brain tumor. It's called a DMG. It's a stage 4 glioma. And only about 400 kids get diagnosed an entire year.
What's the prognosis?
So unfortunately, there is no cure.
Yeah.
And while there's no cure, there's no understanding of the actual root cause. So we've been treating for symptoms to keep Derek stable and strong, so in hopes that we could find a cure. I figured allegedly we could put a man on the moon. Maybe we could find a cure. So we're not giving up hope. Right now, we are living temporarily in an Airbnb in Laguna Beach, California, where we now are receiving in-home hospice care. But we will not give up, and this fight is not over.
So, I mean, even though you have an NYPD pension, and some of the treatments, I guess, were covered by insurance, you're still up against the wall, and financially, tens of thousands of dollars in medical debt. Is there anything that American people, our viewers, can do to help?
Well, thank you to Paul Manicone and his wife, friend of mine, former NYPD. And I want to thank the podcast community, the police and fire community, the jiu-jitsu community, the medical community, and clergy and military for stepping up and helping out on behalf of Paul Manicone and his wife, setting up a GoFundMe, and also Susan Edelman for putting out an article in the New York Post that really got the eyes on this story. And Derek is one of several. There's other kids out there that need our help, and I want to thank these people. I'm overwhelmed and humbled by the help and assistance that we have received, and especially now that I'm residing in Laguna Beach temporarily, to the Laguna Beach Police Department and the Laguna Beach Fire Department. They have opened the doors, and the hospitality has been amazing, and it put a short-term smile on my face.
Eric, we're praying for Derek, and we hope you get through this.
We will, and I want to thank everyone for the help and assistance we've gotten. We have to help these kids. We cannot stop fighting. Allegedly, we could put a man on the moon. Let's cure this disease. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So prayers for Derek Dim and the Dim family, and Eric's strong. I spoke to him; he's doing well. The Laguna Beach PD and the Laguna Beach Fire Department really going above and beyond. Really big shout out to those guys and girls. So, all right, let's get into it. So Tina Moore puts out an article in the New York Post. She calls it the brain drain, right? Some facts about what she puts out. She says, according to the Post, the NYPD lost 450 detectives in 24. More alarming, 359 detectives have put in for retirement in just the first 2 months of 25. So we almost beat last year's number in the first 2 months, Mike being one of those individuals, so who joins us here today. In total, the Post has the numbers at 4,948 detectives in total, as opposed to when peak staffing levels in 2001, there were 7,000 detectives. It's also reported by Tina Moore in collaboration with the New York City Detective Endowment Association that there's another 1,676 investigators with at least 19 years or more on the job who will be eligible to retire in 25, potentially lowering the overall number of detectives to 3,272. See, the thing that the article did not weigh in on, and what myself and Marlon have drilled down on further, and Marlon, I'd like you to speak on this, is the numbers are skewed, right? Because we know in the NYPD, there's two types of detectives, right? There's a detective investigator and there's a detective specialist. Now, some people we could say don't even deserve the specialist shield, but there are people that deserve promotions, right? ESU, people with high technical experience in Taru, places like that, where they're not traditionally investigating crimes. They have a technical expertise, or they weigh in on very dangerous situations, and their performance is vital to the overall mission of the NYPD. However, the public, the media, and lawmakers do not understand when they hear detective, and they don't understand that there is a difference. So these numbers are much worse. The caseload is much worse. The clearance rates are much worse. So before we go into the numbers, Mike, do you want to just break down the difference between a detective investigator and a detective specialist?
Well, you got your investigators are catching cases in squads. You know, narcotics cases, regular squad cases, wherever they may work. Specialist is kind of like two types, like you mentioned before. You got you guys in ESU who absolutely deserve to get that promotion. I even go as far as saying some like anti-crime guys that deserve on getting that type of promotion inside their precincts. And then you got executive drivers that don't deserve it at all. And they're the ones getting the majority of those specialist shields right now.
And then Marlon, so you did a little research for 2024. You went on New York City's open data payroll. And what'd you come up with when you were looking at that?
Yeah. So we went on the city's open payroll data, and we also used the NYPD's NYPD online page, which it has a roster. You know, you can look up an MOS by their name. Now, if you go to their GitHub, you can source the data from there and merge it with the payroll data. So what we discovered was that basically 21% of the detectives right now are specialists. Okay. And we have a total active count of 5,252, which is a little higher than the post. The post says we currently have 4,948. Now the slight difference can be maybe the post has exact up to date numbers from the union. My numbers are up to date as of the last payroll data, which is last month. So yeah, we have 21% of detectives are specialists, which means by the department's own metrics, those guys aren't investigators. So they're not in the squads, they're not taking cases, they're not they're not doing the work of detectives. Now, as Mike said, there are some guys who definitely deserve that shield. You know, guys who have specialized skills, guys who really grinded for that shield. You know, who really deserve it. But when you're seeing a number as high as 21%, you really have to wonder, you know, have we been giving out that shield to? Has that shield been watered down right now?
Absolutely.
Now, if we go to my Twitter, I also posted up a chart which shows you that over the last 10 years there has been a market there has been a significant increase in the detective specialists. Right now, it's about 70% increase from 2014. So, yeah, I mean, those questions we have about whether the shield was watered down, you can see here that it basically was. You know, we're kind of giving that out to everybody these days. Yeah.
Yeah, so the thing to take note of is so that over time there's more detectives that don't do traditional casework. So, but there's less detectives, and what Marlon just pointed out there is that over 20% are specialists that don't traditionally carry cases or help in the solving of crimes, bringing justice to victims. The other point of note I just want to bring out about that data is this open payroll data. It's unclear right now if when there's 750 second grade detectives, so that's 14.28% of detectives. It's unclear if when a specialist makes second or first grade, if they are still carried as specialists in open data payroll, or if they fall into that second grade and then that first grade where we have 322 detectives, which is about 6% of the overall number of detectives. In my opinion, I feel that is not a traditional true first and second grade detective investigator numbers, and those numbers are actually higher for who are specialists. And then as these numbers dwindle, in my opinion, you're going to see the rate, the percentage of detective specialists jump up, because as you've seen in the recent years, the numbers have increased. So it's more likely that as people retire, the percentage of detective specialists, even though the overall number will be lower, the number of people who actually make up detectives,
Yeah.
the specialist percentage would be higher. What do you think about that, Mike?
Nah, you're right. Absolutely. It's crazy because you're going through a staffing crisis, right? And you know you're losing X amount of detectives. You just lost a big chunk. You're losing another big chunk very soon. And you have specialists that are at 21% right now that don't do any detective work. And you don't backfill the squads with any white shields or any other detectives. You don't. It's like a losing battle. And about 6 months before I left is when I started feeling it in my squad. We got numbers so low and we just couldn't handle the caseload. So I can only imagine what it's going to look like now going into this year, at the end of this year, with these crazy numbers we're looking at now. And I don't know, man. I don't know if there's an answer to fix it. I don't know how they fix it. It's painful to see.
Well,
Yeah.
so the other thing is this, right? The other thing is like case rates. Like, what does that mean for the caseload? So Tina Moore reports that in 2000, average case load for a detective was 250 cases a year. But she says in 24, average caseload is 500 to 600 or more, depending on the squad you work in. Mike, what was your caseload going when you recently retired? What would you say? What was your average about a year?
I was doing Brams, so we were in like the 300 area. But again, there was only two of us in Bram, splitting all the burgs and robberies. Then you had the catching, the guys catching with breaking 500 easily, and that was only the fifth squad. That wasn't like the 7-5 squad or the 120 detective squad. Not to knock the fifth in any way, but it was just a little bit of a slower, different command where I can only imagine how this affects those bigger commands with larger caseloads. And we would complain, like you have the bosses complain like, hey, I don't have enough guys. I only have 6 guys catching cases. Nobody gave a shit. There was no, they blew it off all the time. Comstat rolls around and they want to bury your detective CO for, not paying attention to this case. They don't care how many cases you have. They're pulling like BS cases and they have 10 guys in Comstat working one of your cases when you're one guy working 300. There's no win in this battle. The unions don't really help either. That's why it's scary to see now when these numbers came out on what's about to happen, because I think this is going to break it. This is going to break the job completely.
So, Marlon, what do you think? So now everyone, like, I think traditionally people on the outside, company CEO, they'll be like, "What's the big deal? We'll just promote more detectives. What's the big deal?" Like, what do you think the problem is here with the loss of detectives? First of all, why do you even think detectives are leaving, and what do you think that the problem is there?
Well, that there's so many problems we've talked about with this job right now, but as we can see right here, that one of the problems is inefficiency. Between 22 and 24, there's been, in that 3-year period alone, from 2022 fiscal year to 2024, there's been a 27% increase alone in specialist shields. Okay, so what we're talking about here is a job that's not efficiently using its resources, and the problem is you get guys in the squad who get burnt out. After these guys are catching, their caseload keeps increasing, and the precincts themselves keeps pushing more stuff to the detectives. What I found when I was in the command before I left is that like everything was pushed to the squads. It's like everybody it's like everybody kind of like turned off their brains, so to speak, and just it was like give it to the squad. These guys will figure it out.
That's a great point.
And it's just inefficient. So we're increasing these guys' caseloads and we're decreasing their manpower. So of course you're gonna get guys who get burnt out, and once they hit their 20 years, they're gonna feel like, hey, you know what? I gotta leave. I can't do this anymore. I'm not happy coming to work anymore. But like I said, there's a lot of issues there's a lot of issues at play here, and one of those is inefficiency and the using allocating the wrong resources to the wrong place. Instead of that 27% increase in specialist shields, that should have been an increase in third graders or an increase in second graders at least, because between the years 2014 and 2024, there's been a 75% decrease in second grade rank. So the detective, so
Wait,
the
say that
job
again. Say that again.
between 2014 and 2024, there's been a 75% decrease in second grade detectives.
Wow.
Yes, crazy.
Yes. So that means on top of not efficiently allocating resources, the job is not rewarding these guys. So what incentive do they have to remain on the job still?
Wow. So 75% decrease in the number of second grade detectives. And then the people that you see getting promoted, sanitation liaison, community affairs, match drivers. I mean, that's insane. Mike, what do you like? What do you think overall? Not just you particularly, but like what do you think overall? Like, why are detectives retiring? Why are they leaving? Why are they running early? Like, you're a young guy, dude. You should still be on the job another 10, 15 years. Like, what do you think it is?
Marlon's 100% right. It starts with the precinct, right? They're kicking everything to detective squads. Everything, bro. They don't know enough to work it themselves and figure out whether it's should go to the squad or not. It's just like they're like robotic. Whatever they get goes to the squad, no matter what it is. That creates that high caseload. And then you're looking at these guys like me, and there's a lot of guys like me that were third grade detectives looking to get promoted that would have hung around. That's an incentive to stick around past your 20, and they just nothing. You're watching these empty suits get these promotions when you have hardworking guys that aren't getting anything. That's a crazy stat. I didn't even realize it was 75%. That's
if I may, I'm sorry. It's actually 31%. Okay, 31%. I'm sorry.
That's still huge, though. It's still
current number we have is 750 for second graders, and we had 1,003 in 2014. So it's a 30% decrease. I'm sorry.
That's crazy. Still crazy. I mean, you see, every time promotions came out, we'd look at them, and you get mad because you're like, you got 2 numbered squads in the whole city on a promotion list for second grade, and the rest of specialties. It's crazy, man. That's a big reason why guys are leaving. There's no incentive. They don't even try to offer you that incentive. Like, hey, Mike, would you stay a year if we got you the promotion to second grade? And sure as shit, I would have said yeah, because that helps you out down the road. And then you got guys like my partner who waited. Shit, he did over 10 years in Detective Bureau before he got to second grade. And thank God he got it right before this new executive regime came in. Otherwise, he probably had been waiting around still himself.
So and then like what do you guys think about? So like I'm just looking at this as a problem as a business owner. Like, okay, where you guys, all right, you're down. You're going down to 3,200 detectives. Let's just promote more cops to third grade detective. What's the big deal? Let's stop making specialists, or let's take some of those specialists and move them into squads. What do you think traditionally? Why would that be a problem? Like, what do you see the problems with that, Marlon?
Well, I see the problem as there are a lot of specialists who haven't put in the work, for detective, like Mike mentioned, the rise of drivers getting specialist shields, Now these guys, traditionally in a precinct, guys who hit the squad are guys who pretty much done everything in the precinct, You've done your time in patrol, conditions, SNU or anti-crime or the FIO's office, and you're going to the squad. So that means you have years of knowledge and experience built on top. But the problem is when you make your driver a detective specialist, that driver, a lot of times that driver hasn't progressed in that manner. They haven't done everything in the precinct, So they have they don't have that experience and knowledge that the guy who has done everything in the precinct has once he gets to the squad. And that's a problem. That's a problem. You can't just overnight put a guy in a squad. You know, there's a lot you need to learn about being a detective and like, you know, talking to people and, you know, just doing the basic data checks or something that, you know, you just can't throw a guy on a computer and expect him to know how to build a case folder overnight, you know?
And what do you think about that, Mike? Like, what if we just made all Imagery and Kaz's drivers and Kaban's drivers, all the people who didn't traditionally earn it, they got 5 arrests, 7 arrests, all sergeant ordered arrests. We switch them from detective specialist to detective investigator, and then we just start taking rookies, 2 years on the job, and moving them up to the squad. Like, what are the problems you see with that?
I mean, Marlon's right. You throw a specialist in the mix like that's been driving somebody around, they're not going to know anything. Would I love to see it? Absolutely, because I would love to see them start earning some of the stuff they were given on this job. Maybe they'll get humbled also too, and see how it is to actually be a real detective, do some real police work in the NYPD. New people getting promoted is tough because, like I mentioned when I was on you guys' show before, it's not like it was back in the day where people lining up to get in the bureau. Nobody wants to come to the bureau anymore. If you talk to these new cops, I'm going to take the sergeant's test. That's too much for me. The exact words. We tried to get some really good cops into our squad from the 5th, and they didn't want any part of it. And I can't sit there and blame them. It's a shit show. So it's hard to get white shields to come in because nobody's applying for the position anymore.
Yeah, and so I think what's important here, and we're not sitting here picking on specialists, because again, there are people that totally deserve extra pay from the rank of police officer and potentially second, first grade, right? We saw, we see that often, members of ESU, any specialized units where they do great, dangerous work, and they deserve some type of compensation for that. So we're not sitting there and saying, oh, they should get away with specialists. This isn't what we're honing in on. The reason we're honing in on this is because there's a numbers play again and a misrepresentation of actual numbers. So people are appalled by these detective numbers, but they don't traditionally understand that most detectives, well, at least over 20% of detectives, don't actually even investigate cases. So the people catching cases are actually much less, which means clearance rates, which are at 32% right now, clearance rates at 32%. What happens to clearance rates? What happens to caseloads and clearance rates if we go from the number that we're at now down to 3,200? What happens to that, Marlon?
Yeah, that means cases, though. That means there are cases that are going, going cold and unsolved. If I may, there's an aspect of this that isn't being talked about, and that is the fact that overtime isn't pensionable for a certain percentage of tier 3. Now, tier 3, there's 2 portions of it. I believe it's 3A and 3B, but one portion is pensionable, while the others have been they've gotten back a lot of the pension benefits that they've lost. I believe they had to pay in a certain amount to get it. But the fact that your overtime isn't pensionable means you've just made the rank of this detective a little less desirable, because now you're going to get these guys who might have thought about being a detective. They look at the workload, right? And then they look at the benefits. And when they weigh them, their thoughts go towards taking the test and becoming a boss. And most definitely, the fact that overtime as a detective isn't pensionable for them is something that's going to push them towards taking those tests and becoming a supervisor rather than going into the squad. So that's an aspect that really isn't being talked about. And although I know the unions right now are making a push in Albany for the return of tier 2 pensions, but as I've noted on Twitter, that's a pipe dream. Okay, but that's a whole other discussion that we're getting into. But I just wanted to say that again, that the fact that they have a entirely different pension scheme plays a part in them not wanting to be in the squad. And the less people in the squad means the current guys that are there are overloaded with work, and these are cases that are going to fall through the loophole because these guys have so much on their plate right now.
What do you think about that, Mike? Number of detectives drops down. What happens to clearance rates? What happens to caseload?
Caseload is going to jump sky high. Clearance rates are going to fall to like garbage. And like I said before, the problem is the bureau and the job they don't care. You know, like if they actually cared, they would kind of put something into play to kind of maybe help out or alleviate some of the stress that's going on in the squads. But you know, you'll have that ComStat pop up where you'll lose another 1,500 detectives, and they'll pull your case, and they'll still go crazy and start berating you like, you know, the big babies they are in that room. They don't want to hear about a manpower issue, which blows my mind because that's the whole job. Like, if the manpower is low, how are you expected to get X, Y, and Z done in a timely manner, or to get it done the way you would typically get it done, investigating your cases in depth, when you're not going to be able to? It's crazy, bro. It's gonna get to a point of no return, and I see it happening way faster than I thought it was.
So there's a lot happening, you know. And Jonathan Fredericks, he's coming on here on Wednesday, former Sergeant Detective Squad, homicide sergeant. He's out in the chat yelling at Pat Donahue still, and he pulled rank on out Donahue to get on the show. So he's gonna be on Wednesday. But he brings up a good point. He says total clearance rate for the NYPD for specific crimes like homicide, the clearance rate is much higher. Very true.
Yeah.
But the less detectives we have, the less qualified detectives we have, that clearance rate drops lower. That caseload goes higher. So it affects overall. It'll affect overall, bringing everything down. And then the thing I think that, like, you know, like I said, if you want to just attack it from the outside, like the corporate world, like just get more detectives. That's it. Just make more detectives. The problem is we can't get cops.
Right.
They put in a class of 1,000 guys. They scraped it together. They called back people who failed the psych. They called back people who failed the physical. They called back people that traditionally wouldn't have got job. The majority of that class would have not got to be NYPD officers when we took the test, right? When we took the test, there were thousands and thousands of us. I forget who we had on. And he said there was 68,000 people that took his exam. I forget who. I think it was Rob Lukash. He said 68,000 people took his exam. You know, we had thousands taking our exams, and now you can't even. It's like basically you take the exam, you're getting the job, and so now you're getting less qualified people to even become cops. You can't even replace the cops. The number of cops is lower, so it's like we're in a spiral, and I think you're right, Mike. I think we're in a complete utter spiral. Yeah. What do you think about that, Marlon? Is like, what's the way out? What's the way out? How do you get more? What's the way out? I mean, this is an impossible question because there's so many different things. But what's the way out specifically for detectives? You're the chief of detectives right now. You're getting dragged around by your arm. You're Joe Kenny. Jessica Tisch is pulling you all over the stage, telling you when to speak, when to do whatever. What is your solution? What are you going to tell her? Hey, boss, what do you think?
Well, I would start by pushing some of those specialists into the squad. Like we said, it's a lot of them are inexperienced, but we're in a emergency situation. So, you know, they're gonna have to get acclimated with the program and get up to speed real quick. But I personally would push some of those guys into squads, you know. But the overall problem here is that we don't have enough cops to begin with. Now, as of 2024, we were down 570 from 2023, but the peak in the last 10 years was 2018 when we had 23,689 cops. As of 2024, we have 20,855 cops. So you can see we're down several thousand cops from years prior. So if we're down in cops, where naturally we're going to be down in squad guys, in detectives, because we have less cops to push, or there are less cops available from a pool to move on to the squads. But this is a there's a larger problem at play here, and you know it goes with the entire manpower of the job, and it's the fact that it's down, and the fact that the job is asking more of cops with less personnel. And this shouldn't really surprise all of us, because years ago, well, in 2023, I put it up on Twitter. In 2023, the mayor's aide, Chris Barr, already told us that the city was planning to do more with less via cutting services, because he anticipated the city was in a $10 billion deficit by 2026. So I think the hidden truth behind all of this is the fact that the city is in some financial straits right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I remember. So Chris Ball was the mayor's advisor. He's a senior advisor to Eric Adams. He got caught on like a undercover interview where basically he thought he was out on a date and somebody was recording him, and he said that, first of all, he was like, it doesn't matter, being a cop's an easy job, except you might get shot. He said it's one of the easiest jobs. But he also said that he didn't know that Eric Adams had the competence. He didn't know that Eric Adams had the competence to lead us out of this fiscal crisis. He said he didn't know how to steer the ship. He didn't believe that Eric Adams could actually do that. And he was dead accurate. And that was the comment that got him fired. He said, Eric Adams said that he fired Chris Ball for knocking city workers, but Chris Ball was just mirroring what he heard from Eric Adams. He said the same exact thing. Eric Adams had said that same exact thing up at a press conference, basically saying people don't want the job, talking about guys like me and Marlon, who was standing up and saying, we're not going to do this. It's not in our contract. It's not legal. We're not receiving due process. This is wrong. Stop doing this. He was like, you guys, we don't need you guys. We have tons of people to replace you. So Chris Ball just mirrored that. But Chris Ball was 100% right. We should actually bring him back, because he had forethought and he had foresight, because he knew exactly what was going to happen in New York City. And what you're seeing in the NYPD is exactly what's happening across all New York City agencies. NYPD just gets a lot of highlight because it affects you personally, it affects you public safety. So while it's true that your homicide rates may be better than the 32%, doesn't mean anything in the day-to-day for people. Right? I mean, that's obviously the worst case scenario, when my bike's stolen, when my house is broken into, when my car's broken into, when my business is broken into, when I'm robbed on the street. Those are the clearance matters. Those are the clearance rates, I think, that matter more than anything, because those are the ones that affect you when you're walking on the streets in New York City. Those are your interactions with the New York City Police Department. Right? What happens? Oh, I go to Target and I steal. And the patrol cops show up and they don't even lock me up. They take a 61 with me as a named perp, right? And they kick it to the squad. Years ago, that would have been considered you lost a prisoner. Today, that's common practice. And it's like, well, how does the business owner feel? How does a complainant feel when things like this are happening? And that's what's happening on the streets in New York. And it's all due to mismanagement. It's mismanagement from City Hall, and it's appointing people that traditionally don't deserve to be in those roles. And so what we get is now we just have people basically selling you fairy tales. They're giving you a Christmas list. So here comes Andrew Cuomo, the king of bail reform, love discovery law, the father of repealing 50A, and he comes along and he's singing you guys a nice song. He's giving New Yorkers a nice Christmas list. He's going to fix everything. He plans to hire 5,000 more NYPD cops. Mike, what do you think about Andrew Cuomo saying he's going to hire 5,000 more cops? Yeah. I'm going to get 5,000 more cops. What's the big deal?
I mean, where's he getting them from, bro? Is there like a store he's going to shop at? Because nobody wants to take this job. It's a blatant lie. He's just talking shit to get people to throw his hat in the mix for this. It's a lie. You can't find 5,000 people that want this job right now. There's no way. There's no way. There's no benefit, bro. And you guys talked about it with Barr mentioned the city was in a deficit. I believe that's very true too. They started knocking tier 2, kicking us out of the job. I honestly think they don't want us there. I truly believe they don't want tier 2 guys on the job anymore to save money. The tier 3 guys that have no pensionable anything, there's no options for them. That's who they want. So where are you getting 5,000 people that want a job with no incentives? Where? It's crazy. Crazy statement.
I mean, that's a great point. Marlon, what do you think? Where's Andrew Cuomo getting 5,000 cops from?
Yeah. I'd like to know myself. Better yet, where's he getting the money to pay them? This year alone, 2024, the city had a $5 billion deficit. Okay, and that's going to be compounded next year. This is probably those projections that Chris Barr made when he said it was going to be 10 billion by 2026. So I want to know where is he getting that money? That goes along with a pipe dream of bringing back tier 2, because
Never happened.
On Twitter, I also put up another video which says, which mentioned about states and cities in particular being in a hole right now. They're in a hole because their revenue isn't matching all the services that they have to provide and all the infrastructure costs of maintaining a city. But these are years of compounding progressive wasteful spending that's now coming to a head. But yeah, I want to know where Cuomo's going to find those 5,000 cops, because the job, every year we get the same push from City Hall saying that, okay, we're going to hire 2,000 more cops. We're going to hire 1,000 more cops, however many thousands. But every year we still see that the number of police officers is down. And it's been, like I said, it's been down marketably since 2018. But even back to 2014, we were still up by 2,000 extra cops. We just happened to hit the peak in 2018 when we had nearly 4,000 extra. But like I said, we've been down all these years, and they have not been able to fill those academy ranks like they did back in our classes.
Right.
So where are they magically going to overnight find 5,000 cops to want to fill these seats? How much further would they have to degrade the standards to get on this job to be able to find 5,000 people? Is it?
I mean, yeah, she said she's going to bring back the run. She didn't say she is bringing back the run. She didn't say the run's back. She said, I'm going to bring it back. When?
After they find 5,000 people.
When? In 2030? When are you doing that? And then Pat Donahue said, he said Cuomo might be able to get 5,000 cops. He's definitely not going to get 5,000 cops, but he might be able to get 5,000 bodies. Meaning he's not going to get suitable candidates for the job. I personally don't think at the stage that it's in, and being that it's Andrew Cuomo or Eric Adams or Adrian Adams or Scott Stringer or Zohan, I don't believe they'll be able to find 5,000 people within the first 4-year term. I don't even think they'll be able to find 5,000 bodies unless they do exactly what Marlon's saying. Just basically throw all of the standards out the window, which they already have.
Yeah.
And the other problem that no one's talking about is like, okay, you're hiring people, but they're not staying. So you're getting not only are you losing the seasoned experience guys, you're losing young guys that are either going to different departments, they're getting the training and they're going to different departments, or they're just leaving the profession and they're like, yo, I'm not doing this. This is crazy. I'm not living like this. These guys are miserable. This is a miserable existence on earth. And so literally that 1,000 people is probably already down to about 850. By the time they finish and graduate the academy, it's going to be down to about 700. Then in the first 2 years, they're going to lose another 10 to 15%. So, and nobody's talking about that. And then what's the new saying? 10's the new 20. Because nobody wants to do 25 years on this job because it has not been a viable profession. And you're sitting there and you're like, is this being done intentionally? Is this being done intentionally to diminish the rank of the police department, or actually just to send it into a spiral where it's completely unrecoverable from? Because it's not, I don't see how you could be this stupid. I don't see how leadership in New York City could say that this is what's happening is good. And the only thing we're hearing is more of the same. There is no clear, coherent reasoning or plans being given as to what they're going to do to hire more cops, qualified candidates, and to retain the experience they have. There's nothing being offered. There's absolutely nothing. There's no incentive for people to stay at this point other than money, and they just keep going back to the money. The unions keep going back to the money. The job keeps going back to the money. And now the unions have came out with this thing. Email your state representative and tell them you want them to act to retain more cops. But they don't even give a reasoning. They don't even tell them like what it is. It's not like we're asking for better pay. We're asking for a better pension tier. They don't even give a reason. All it is fill out this form and email your state rep and tell them that they want to help us retain. Like, what'd you think about that? I'm sitting there and I'm going, why would I email someone, or why would anyone in the public email their state representative without knowing what exactly it is that they're asking for? I was like, is this real? Like, what is this? Have we gotten so bad at propaganda campaigns that we can't even like give something, like whatever it is? Oh, we want to change tier 2A to tier 2. Like we can't. You can't even put that in there. Like there's nothing in there. We're just emailing our state representatives our names. Help with retention.
Yeah.
What do you want? If I'm the state rep, I'm going to be like, what do you want me to do? Okay.
Yeah. You know how they're gonna find all those 5,000 cops, John? They're gonna close the gym door. That's how they're gonna find it. Close the gym door and then open it, and magically everyone will pass the run again.
Well, on my way out, I'm sorry to cut you off from all. On my way out, they were talking about backfilling with traffic agents. Right, that was the job's big talk, was let's deputize traffic agents, send them in for a 4-week course, and switch them right over to PD. Now, I always thought it was nonsense hearing it, but now that I'm hearing about this 5,000, I'm like, is that a possibility? Like, I mean, ultimately it'd be a nightmare, but can they do that? Can they pull those numbers from traffic agents?
Yeah, I don't see. I think like if they're lowering standards, there's no run. Take away the obstacle course. You don't like, oh, people, what do you need to jump over a wall for, right? You don't need to run a mile and a half, right? You don't need to do any of these things anymore. You don't need, and I don't care about the college credits. I could give two craps about it. I don't think college makes a good cop. I don't care if you have 60 college credits or you have 2. Really, to me, it makes no difference to me.
It doesn't.
It doesn't mean anything to me. Oh, you have 60 college credits? Okay, so you put yourself in a little bit of debt. If you're an inner city kid, like, okay, you went to school for a little bit. To me, it doesn't mean anything to me, but like, it's just more of the same. And I think that interview not the interview, but the analysis that me and Eric did when we listened to Tanya Meisenholder on that other podcast, that police podcast with the British guy, where she talked about how they needed certain numbers to meet their diversity agenda. So, in the problem that they were seeing is male blacks were having issues passing the psych. And that to me, like, just sent alarm bells off in my head. So it's like, because what she was saying is basically they wanted to hire more male blacks. So in order to hire more male black officers, they lowered the standards of the psych test. So traditionally, people that wouldn't get the job got the job. Now, they didn't lower the standard just for male black officers. They lowered the standard for the psych test. So now it opens up another tier of everyone that has psychological issues that traditionally wouldn't have got on the job that are now on the job. So, and that's what they're doing with everything to meet these diversity goals and these diversity agendas, so that every academy class, they could say, this class is comprised of people who speak 600 languages and from 42 countries. And it's like, what does that matter? Did these people pass the training? Could they speak English? Did they pass the training? Are they going to be effective New York City cops? Don't give me all the roundabout on it. And like, that's what we're all like. I think everyone's missing. The media's missing. The job's missing. The politicians and the lawmakers. Yeah. So why wouldn't they just take traffic cops? Yeah. Oh, Guy has no police experience. I mean, barely speaks English, had zero qualifications to be a police officer. Yeah, but he wrote a bunch of parking tickets, and he wore a uniform. So let's just give him a gun and a badge, and we'll go out there. And I'm sure nothing's going to happen. No bad incidents are going to happen. Or it's just going to get to the point people are going to be like, why do we have cops? I call 911. These people show up. They have no idea what they're doing.
That's a huge problem.
And they don't help me.
That's a huge problem.
Yeah. You know, this job, the fact that this job keeps centralizing every decision-making authority with one PP is a sign of the direction they want to push the job, you know? So I think they view the blue shirts and the guys on patrol and in the precinct as you're a number, right? And if we centralize all decision making at the top, we can easily fit in new cops onto the job, and we don't necessarily need the experienced guys anymore because all the decisions will be made by the supervisors. Yeah, and I've mentioned before that I believe Jessica Tisch, the reason she was brought in was her technical knowledge and her understanding of AI and computers and kind of quantifying the job. And what she's going to do is use that AI to kind of fill in the ranks of the manpower shortage. So you see that push for drones. That these are all stopgap measures where they feel that we can still manage the job with less cops because again, all the decisions are really made by supervisors. So we could get anybody in that uniform, you know? They don't need to necessarily even speak English properly, you know, or write properly. The supervisors could do it all, and we'll just fit in the AI there as well to also fill those gaps. So I think this is the direction the job is heading to, because they want to do more with less and pay less for the efforts that they do have. And the way to accomplish that is to use AI to fill in the gaps. It's to centralize all the decision making at the top and at supervisors, and then we could easily just put a traffic agent there, throw a gun belt on that traffic agent, and he can go out there. You know, he doesn't need to even speak English. You know, he could call the boss for that.
Yeah, dude, it's wild, man. It's what's going on. It's like like you'd have to like, to my opinion, I don't believe. I'm like, you have to be really dumb to come up with these solutions, because they actually don't solve anything. They help things in the short term, but they make the situation much worse, and they bring down the overall quality of the department, the overall quality of the service, and it diminishes public safety. So I'm like, what the hell are these people talking about? Eric says, Eric's on here. Good morning, Eric. He says, Cuomo is delusional. He better start recruiting at strip clubs and entertainment. Looks like cops are finding other avenues. So I think we all know what that. And speaking of that, real quick, I just heard that the detective, she was just transferred out of Bronx Special Victims, and she's in a administrative spot in support services, to absolutely nobody's shock. So so I mean, and that's the thing, right? And that's what we were talking about last episode when we talked about the detective. When you're just promoting people and they didn't traditionally work very hard to get into that spot, they respect that spot less. They respect that rank less. They respect that promotion less. They do dumber things. The overall quality of what happens goes down. Towards the end, I used to say, if I called 911 and these people showed up, I would never call 911 again.
I say it all the time.
I would never call. Like, you sent these people to my house? Like, you sent them to my house, and like, they don't even know what they're talking. They don't care. They have no idea what they're talking about. They have no idea what they're doing. I'm like, I never call 911 again. And like, my first 10, 12 years, 13 years on the job, I didn't feel like that at all. I would go to work with a clear head, knowing that if my wife or my kids or anybody in my family needed help, they could call 911, and there would be people just like me showing up to help them. and they would receive the help they needed, boom, in under 3 minutes. I had that in my head for 13 years. And then towards the end, I didn't have that in my head anymore.
No.
I'm like, what the hell is going on? And by the way, it was much better a job when I left 3 years ago than it is now. And it was still really bad then. And so like, we just continuously double down on failure. It's like, all right, now we just need the numbers, and the same type of CompStat magic that happens with crime statistics is now the same thing that's happening with personnel numbers. So I think really, I just want to give a big shout out to Marlon for really nailing it, because it's a question that people have traditionally been asking for a while now with all of these specialist promotions. How many detectives actually investigate cases? And what we saw is only about 80% of them actually do. Little less than 80% actually investigate cases. Over 20% of detectives currently do not actually investigate cases. And that's not to knock the specialists. It's just to show the public that, hey, if you lose even more detectives, the percentage of specialists is going to rise, because they're the younger generation. They're the ones that have been promoted more. And caseloads are going to go up. The clearance rates are going to go down. And what that means is you have bad guys who committed crimes on the streets who are going to walk away scot-free, or the ones that do get apprehended, they're going to be on the street for a longer period of time. So they're going to commit more crime. So it's wild, and to listen to the NYPD. Oh, we're just gonna backfill with traffic agents. It's like, so you're never going to try to get quality candidates. You're not going to try to fix the retention problem, which they're not. They're not trying to keep guys like Mike Smith. They're not trying to keep guys like Marlon, like myself, like Eric Dim. They're not trying to keep the younger, experienced guys. People did not leave at 20. 25 was the new 20. That's what it used to be. And now it's 10's the new 20. It went from 25's the new 20 or 30's the new 25 to 10's the new 20. I wouldn't have left. Mike wouldn't have left. Marlon wouldn't have left. Eric wouldn't have left. They basically forced our hand. And what you're seeing is you're just seeing a doubling down on it. And Cuomo's telling you, I'm doubling down on this plan. Out with the old, in with the new. Who cares what the effects on the department, what morale, what overall public safety is? I'm just going to sell you this thing for Christmas. I'm going to give you 5,000 bodies.
Yeah. I personally know of 3 guys who had over 20 years who left just for the vax alone, the vax mandate. And these were guys who wanted to stay until they would hit 30 years. They wanted to max out and then retire. So the job is losing a lot of experience there, that when you look at, like a lot of times when I'm watching these cop shows on TV and the squad guys come out, the squad guys have like 30 years, 35 years on, and that's crazy, because we're getting to the point where that's going to be like a rarity on the job. And that hurts the job so much when that level of experience just walks out the door. Yep. And yet you would think this job will be in crisis mode trying to prevent that, but yet it's not. And that's something that completely baffles me. Even if we have a financial crisis, the baseline to a city is public safety. If there's no public safety in that city, businesses leave. And that's the last thing you want to happen, because once those businesses leave, your tax base leaves, so you've got to have public safety. So even if you have a financial crisis, you got to pull out all the stops to make sure that you have enough cops on the street, you have enough squad guys closing cases, because once businesses leave, they take the tax revenue, and then people leave, because not only are the streets unsafe, but those people have less groceries in their neighborhood. They have less stores in their neighborhood. They have less jobs in the city. So why are they staying? They're gonna go to other cities. So this city should be in crisis mode. Yet nobody actually seems to care about it, and it's baffling to me.
There hasn't been consistency at the top of the NYPD in years. What are we at? Commissioner number 4 under Adams right now. Maybe even hitting 5 soon. Who knows? But it starts with that. Without that consistency, without that one person with that plan that was mapped out for X amount of years, it's going in too many directions, way too many times, and we're falling apart. And going back to like the promotions, I got pinned back in 2020, maybe before COVID or a little after, somewhere around that time, by Chief Essick, probably the last qualified chief of detectives we've had in the NYPD. So before he pins you, he sits you down, he asks you, anybody have questions? And right away, he's like, if it's about promotion to second grade or first grade, he's like, I don't have much to answer. He goes, it's out of my hands, believe it or not. He goes, even though I'm the chief of detectives. He goes, but I've been fighting to get it publicly listed on the internet. He's like, my goal is if I don't have a say, at least I can show who's in the mix. So it cuts out a lot of the nonsense and a lot of the hooks. And they fought that guy to the very end to nix that plan. They did not want that list out on the internet to see. Then you go back to who we have now, Joe Kenny. I think he's probably the worst chief of detectives in the history of the NYPD, especially at a time of morale is in the dumps. You don't have the manpower. You don't do anything to get you guys motivated. You don't fight for any of your detectives. You're almost like a puppet sitting there at all these meetings. I've never seen anything like it. How are you the chief of detectives when you ultimately you're supposed to be the second most powerful person in the NYPD as the chief of detectives, and you have nothing to say about what's going on? That blows my mind, man. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't forget his first press conference with the Luigi Mangione when Tish is grabbing him by his arm and moving him in front of the. I'm like, how demeaning are you? Like how far are you willing to go? And the thing is, you'll do whatever you're told, and that's not a leader. That's traditionally not a person. Listen, leaders are always the dude that you like. Most people don't like, right? You like that guy.
Yeah,
that guy's a pain in the ass. That guy. But like when in times of crisis, you're like, oh, I know why that guy's a pain in the ass. You know what? That guy was right. You know what I mean? Like, and like that's the thing. It's like the leader isn't going to be the guy who just goes along to get along. So, and that's what we're seeing in the NYPD is they don't want leaders, right? No. Oh, I want to make it transparent. No. Last thing that Ed Caban wanted to do was make those promotions transparent. Or you would notice that everybody that was getting promoted had a fake butt and fake lips, right? They don't want that. Oh, they only had 3 collars? Yeah, but they're talented. Talent. What kind of talent are we talking about, And G.I. Bro asks, he goes, John, if you were back, would you do more than you had to do? I always did more than I had to do. And when you find quality candidates, they'll always traditionally do more than they had to do.
You're right, man. No matter how disgruntled you get, you're gonna do more. It's
how many times did you go out of work because you got your balls broke about something and say, I'm not doing anything today.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, 14 hours later, you haven't picked your head up or you're still driving around and you're hunting, knowing that when you get this guy, you're gonna get your balls broke again. Like, you know what I mean? And you can't break out of it because traditionally conscientious people are people that care about what they do. They care about what their work. They're quality candidates. You could put them in hell and they're going to perform and they're going to do more than they had to do. And they're going to do hours that they're uncompensated for. They're going to go above and beyond during those hours. And then they're going to take care of themselves last. And absolutely. If I was back in the NYPD, I'd be bitching left and right. I'd be sitting there to blah, 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 blah. But when it was time to do the job, I'm doing the job and I'm going to do it 7 days a week and I'm going to put it above myself and everything else like I always did. And that's the kind of candidates that they forced out of the NYPD. The people who care, right? The people who care. The people who it hurts the most.
They're saving that dollar at the end of the day. That's what it's about, man. I truly believe it goes back to that tier 2. They don't want anybody sticking around. I truly believe that. They want everybody out the door. Let's give these guys garbage tiers now, tier 3B, whatever it is. Let's hire it, But who's taking this job with no incentive? It's just crazy.
Yeah. Well, for a fact, Adam says So in 2023, he was giving one of these community. He was at one of these community meetings. He did weekly, and one of these leftist progressives asked him about police overtime, and he basically came out and he said, "Listen, a lot of the costs as it pertains to the police department are because of their fixed costs. They're tied to the pension and payroll."
Yeah.
And he was like, "We can't do anything about it." And I think that right there is one of those big clues as to why they want to get rid of tier 2, because we're basically too expensive for them, and they think they can, again, by centralizing all decision making to supervisors and guys at the top, you can get a tier 3 guy with no experience and who's probably underqualified to even be a cop, and he can do the job fine because the boss is really the guy who's going to be doing the work, But this issue, I think, unless it's addressed real quick, it's going to get worse. And I've said this before that Trump now he's been talking about it more and more. He wants to bring factory labor back to America, but the thing is that factory labor is going down south. It's going to like Texas and Arizona, and even Midwest, right, Ohio. But the point is, people go where those jobs go. Yeah. And if the tax base is already leaving New York City, like businesses, because it's unsafe for them, people are going to flow to where the jobs are from. You already see it with Phoenix. In the last 2 years, Phoenix has hit the top 5 cities in America, and it's growing even more. Now, what's going to happen is they're going to need more cops in Phoenix. And since Phoenix is getting that tax revenue now from they're getting a lot of money from the factory, from TSMC and all these chip manufacturers. So they're going to have the funds to be able to give bonus to cops. So if you're a young guy and you get presented an offer from Phoenix PD, you get your own car, you get a much better quality of life. Why wouldn't you take it? Why wouldn't you take it? So the job needs to realize that we're not on an island by ourselves. We're competing with other departments, and if those other departments start poaching us, what are they gonna do?
No, yeah, and they're already poaching us. Joe Roscoe said if you switched over traffic agents to cops, then he wouldn't even want them. Like he wouldn't even want them to be cops. Like it's ridiculous. And I agree. As a taxpayer, I would not want my tax money going to those traffic agents. I'd rather have less cops. I'd rather have less cops than just take the traffic agents and move them over. It doesn't make any sense. And I think just to wrap it up, Jesse James brings up to the screen, $4.99. He donated $4.99 to the podcast, and he says this is how you defund the police in plain sight. And I agree, and that's why I say Eric Adams is the king of the defund the police movement, because you have never seen an administration where this many cops have retired, resigned, or vested as you have under Eric Adams' administration. It's a highlight and failure, and nobody wants to bring it up.
Nope.
Eric Adams was a supporter of defund the police. He didn't openly cheer it on. He said, I would be apt to moving the money around. I don't know if we should get more police or less police, but I support looking at it and defunding the police. So he went along with that whole ride. And he played it nice and smooth. He was for it and he was for against it, like he is for everything. But when you look at it, it doesn't matter what he said. It matters what he did. And what he did is he defunded the police. He defunded the detectives. He defunded the NYPD, because more cops, more detectives, more sergeants, more lieutenants, more captains, more inspectors, more chiefs have retired, resigned, or vested more than any other time in history. I mean, we had an inspector basically vest out with 19 years on. Never happened. It never happened. You had lieutenants vesting out like myself. It never happened. These guys do 25 years, 30 years. It never happened. Eric Adams is the king of defund the police. And what do we got waiting in the background? You have the guy who also supported defunding the police, the guy who loves bail reform, the father of 50A, the father of discovery law. You have Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo was cornered yesterday, and he was asked about bail reform. Listen to what Andrew Cuomo had to say about bail reform.
Cashless bail law when you were governor, as some critics have said, it's led to increased crime.
Yeah, cashless bail was signed about 6 years ago. Some people raised issues about not having enough judicial discretion in that bill. That has been changed, that has been remedied. So now it's up to the judges, it's up to the prosecutors to actually use their discretion and bring the appropriate charges.
So last Thursday you were asked,
I'm sorry, one second. Also, remember, bail reform righted a terrible social wrong. We were putting people in Rikers, in jail, who hadn't been found guilty of anything just because they couldn't make bail. It was a terrible case called the Khalif Browder case, which was a young man who was accused of stealing a backpack, was sent to Rikers because he couldn't make bail, and wound up committing suicide, given what he was subjected to. It shouldn't be that because you're wealthy, then you can make bail and you're released. But if you can't make bail, then you stay in jail, even though you haven't been found guilty of anything yet, right? Innocent until proven guilty. Except we're going to set bail, send you to jail. You can't make the bail because you're poor, and you're going to do time even though you haven't been before a judge yet. You haven't even had your case heard. And you could be in jail for a year or 2 years, given the backlog in the criminal justice system. So that's what bail reform was all about, and it was right.
Governor, reminded you had a schedule. So last Thursday you were asked, what mistakes did you make while you were governor? And you didn't mention the nursing home COVID crisis, and you didn't mention any of the women that have charged you with sexual harassment. Do you think you did nothing wrong with that?
No, I said, look, I was governor for 11 years, attorney general for 4 years. I'd say.
So it was a righteous cause, bail reform, and it righted a wrong. So he continues to tout bail reform as a success. Bail reform, the premise of bail reform was a good idea, right? It was like poor people shouldn't stay in jail waiting a case on minor crimes. But that's not what that law did. That law let repeat violent offenders out on New York City streets, out on New York State streets, and they wrote that law. They wrote it poorly. They wrote it, in my opinion, to drive the crime rate up. In my opinion, you couldn't have been that stupid. In my opinion, it'd be hard to sit there. They consulted nobody. They consulted no law enforcement experts. You had Carl Hasty doing that, and now he's sitting there, and you have guys like Cuomo and Adams, and they're doing it. They're touting their failures as successes. Guys, what do you think about that? Mike, I'll go to you first. I'll be right back, dudes. Give me 2 seconds. But Mike and Marlon, hold it down for 2 seconds.
He's a straight up liar, man. I had to deal with that directly in Lower Manhattan, working in Manhattan South, bail reform. I can't tell you how many guys were my burglary and robbery recidivists doing things over and over and over again, nonstop. You put him in, you spend all that time, all those hours putting him in, and he's out for what? To do another crime, catch another case, which ultimately drives your caseload up even higher. Dude, he's just like, I can't even listen to Cuomo talk anymore because look at him. He's a legit liar. It's none of what he says makes sense.
Yeah, so sociopath, bro. Yeah. This guy's a guy who was born with money and never had a real job, and that's all he knows how to be is a lifelong politician. Yeah. I mean, you had your chance as governor and you failed. Go away. Go find a real job, and let somebody else, let some new guy get in there, and let's see what he has. But he wants to kind of like worm his way into the mayor's office and see if that can spark his political career again. But this is scary, you know what it is? It's Munchausen syndrome, like our brother Eric says. Shout out to you, Eric. Yeah, it's Munchausen by proxy. these progressives created the problems. They created all the bureaucratic mess that caused Rikers and the entire system to be what it is. And now they come in and administer their solution, which is basically to throw the baby out with the bathwater,
Kill shot. Yep.
Yeah. And bail reform, it started out as a good idea, but that saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions comes to mind here, because we can see the results now, and even Tish, to her credit, is now publicly admitting what the exact problems are, and actually talking to these state representatives about it. So you got to give her credit for doing that. But like I said,
I give her credit, but she doesn't. She should give credit to me and Eric for telling her to do it. So I give her credit for doing it, but she should give credit to where most of the stuff comes from, and that. And don't give her credit when it comes to actually solutions of the problem, because even with her, what will her solution be and her family's solution be? Fund people like Andrew Cuomo, fund people like Eric Adams, fund people like Carl Hasty. So the people that created the problem. And yeah, I agree with you, dude. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. But I think it was sold to you as a good intention. I don't even believe it was packaged with a good intention. Because I've been saying it for 3 years. This doesn't even help the people that they claim they care about.
No.
Right? If you care about the youth, if you care about them in violent crime, you would actually have come up with actual solutions. You would come up with things for them. I was just watching a video of Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, TK Waters. He has this program where he goes around with his gang unit. And if they get info on you that you're involved in a gang, they go to your house, basically almost like a warrant. They don't go into your house, but they show up with a ton of dudes. They scare the crap out of you. Like, what the hell's going on? They have a formal letter they're giving you. But in that letter is like, basically, now it's time. You have the opportunity to change your life here. And they offer free services, free trade schools, things like this. And I'm like, that's something I could get behind immediately, right? Like, that's something, like, that's an actual solution to this.
It's a real solution.
That's a real, like, that's because traditionally, why are people involved in gangs and drugs? They need money, right? So if you're helping people that are in lower income areas to actually put money on their table to get them a pathway to success, maybe they don't have those role models of saying, this is what I did, do this, do that. You'll make the money. You'll be able to afford a house. You'll be able to afford a family. So when I watch that, I'm like, yeah, that's traditional. That's great. That's great work. Bail reform, I believe, was packaged as a good intention. But like, if anyone who read it, any cop who read it and read it thoroughly and looked at the crimes that it involved, you'd be like, this is insane. That the crime's going to skyrocket. And that's what we all said, and it happened. And now, yeah, she's using her bully pulpit to do it. Another thing I thought super funny, which happened, and you know what, Jack, I didn't even give it to you, but so what happens the other day at the academy is, me and Eric often quote Jocko Willink. I've met Jocko before. We've read all his books. We often quote extreme ownership, a lot of the stuff that he writes, a lot of the stuff that he says. So I thought it was hysterical. The department hires Jocko Willink and Echelon Front to go give a motivational speech on leadership. And like, wow, I wonder where the hell they got that idea to do that from, right? And whose picture do they pull up on the screen in the auditorium? They pull up the picture of Eric Dim with his helmet on and his club, and he's sitting on top of the car, and he's like this. The picture that he was demonized over, the picture that CCRB ruined and destroyed his good name and his career over, but they're using it to show leadership. And I'm like, it's crazy. Like, I'm like, it's such a mixed message, because in one scenario, they're sitting here telling everyone not to listen to me and Eric, that we're insane, that we're psychos, that we don't know what we're talking about, that we're disgruntled, that we're all this, we don't know what we're talking about, but yet they're using the picture of Eric. They're using the picture of Eric as a picture of leadership and for motivation. I'm like,
yeah. Hey, John, that video you saw, was it a Peter Santinello video?
yes.
Oh, that's crazy, because I was watching that too yesterday.
Yeah.
Funny. Yeah, it was by Jacksonville Sheriff's Department. It's a good video. But
It made me want to be a cop, dude. I'm not even lying. I was like, oh,
yeah,
I don't live that
absolutely.
far. Maybe,
Absolutely. I was watching. I'm like, those guys seem pretty happy over there,
Yep.
Everybody seems happier
Yeah.
in this profession outside of New York City and LA. I think for the most part, everybody's happier in this profession elsewhere. You know, we're in a world of shit here. And I mean, like, if you guys had to choose, what do you think? I mean, like, we were talking about it earlier, but the Republicans are out of the equation as far as May is concerned right now. So what's the better option? Is it Cuomo or is it Adams? Like, it's even ridiculous to have to ask that question.
Yeah.
But for the best of New York, what is the answer to that?
I personally think the guy with no management experience, who was a radio show host, is right now the better option if he comes out. I think Jim Walden would be a good mayor. I don't know that he'll get the media attention necessary to win the race. And that's traditionally what you need. You need the traction. You need the media attention. You need to be polling. I honestly think that, listen, I respect Curtis Lewa. I think he's far from a Republican, even though they have him painted as this far-right Republican. I don't think he has the managerial experience needed to be a mayor. I would go with him over these two failures. But I'll tell you right now, and nobody's looking at this, there's this kid, Zohran Mamdani. He's a Democratic Socialist of America. He wants to give free buses, free trains, free baby baskets, city-owned grocery stores, right? This kid has an army on the ground every day handing out flyers. This kid has out-fundraised every candidate in the mayor race through small donations. He is running an election and a campaign, a modern-day campaign, which the Democrats and the Republicans are not doing and what they need to do. He's likable when he speaks. He's very likable. He's radical on a lot of issues, but you will not hear that out of him in his videos. So when you watch his video, you're like, oh, wow, this is a fresh face. This guy's got some great ideas. This sounds great. He's going to lower the rents. He's going to bring down the cost of living, right? He doesn't tell you how he's going to do any of that, but he says he's going to do it. And nobody's paying attention to this kid. And now you have Andrew Cuomo, you have Eric Adams, and you have Adrian Adams all splitting their own vote. Plus, you got Brad Landa and Scott Stringer, who have all ran in the same circle for years. I wonder when they wrote that article, because I've been saying this. I've been tweeting about this. I wonder if this was based on what I was putting out. But you have all of them running in the same circle. There's 5 of them, right? Running in the same circle, pulling votes from each other. And now you bring in ranked choice voting. This kid could win the Democratic primary. He could be the Democratic nominee. I believe that bumps up Jim Walden, but I also believe that hurts Scott Stringer. Curtis Lewa for bringing it in. My personal opinion is New York politics is a shit show, and this kid could actually wind up being the mayor. And they're going to double down on failure. I don't believe Curtis Lewa is going to win the mayoralship the way it sits right now. But remember, the favorite never wins. Andrew Yang was going to win, didn't win, right? The favorite never wins. So I don't know, man. You might see a socialist mayor. Things might need to get worse before the Conservative Party and the Republican Party come up and put an actual candidate that has the ability to retract the Democratic vote, to get people out to the polls, to get that out on ground support. And a lot of people here are like, oh, why don't you guys compare the NYPD to the Department of Corrections? What's happening? Because we don't need to. It's the same exact thing. Like I said, the NYPD is just a microcosm of every New York City agency. All the failures of the NYPD are the same when you look at the Department of Corrections, when you look at the Department of Education, when you look at anything. It always goes back to the same failures. We speak to corrections officers all the time, and it's a mirror. It's a mirror. It's a public safety failure. The ideas presented by the leadership is awful. So, yeah, I don't know what that answer is, dude, but to choose between Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo, I'm basically choosing. It's like they're the same person, in my opinion. They're both snake oil salesmen. It's like, Who would you rather? An Italian guy lying to you every day or a black ball guy lying to you every day? Which one? I'm like, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I know.
Yeah. Basically the same guy, you know. What policy difference do they really have? You know. But I agree. I think this Zohan guy, there's a good chance he may end up winning. I think this is going to be a situation like Bernie Sanders versus Hillary, you know, where the younger Democrats, the younger progressives love Bernie, and the older ones the establishment ones loved Hillary. So there could definitely be some infighting there. But even if he wins, my question is, will he have enough of support to get anything done? Because then you might just see infighting amongst the city's Democrats to the degree where he can't really, you know, what could he be able to get done? But yeah,
that's a great point, because the problem in New York is we haven't took out the feet, right? Like, which traditionally, if you want to take over a system, you have to do it the same way the far left has done in New York City. You want to win those city council seats first. You want to win the public advocate seat. You want to get the seats where it gets things done. You want to take that Speaker of the Seat House and City Council, and the Republican Party has failed on doing that, right? Like they're not putting up good candidates, and they're not like if I'm in charge of the GOP right now, I'm coming to you both every day. I want you running in the district. I want you running. Mike, don't move. I want you running in the district. We'll run you. We'll get you in this. We'll get you in that. And that's what needs to be done. Because you're right. If Curtis Lewa gets in, or you get a common sense, moderate to conservative candidate, they're not going to be able to accomplish mainly anything, because city council still controlled by far left progressives. The state senate and the state assembly are controlled by far left progressives.
You already see the split. Like, I'm looking at the comptroller race right now, right? And it strikes me that all of the candidates have a similar plan to invest in kind of like a social welfare causes using the pension funds, right? And I think there's a lot of big business money, specifically big real estate money behind those guys. So you see, the comptroller's office is going to be leaning more towards establishment and corporatists in the Democrat Party. And if Zohan comes in as mayor, he's coming in because of the younger progressive left-wing side of the Democrats. So you already see the friction between the people who are going to be running the city right there. And then you have city council, which is still going to be Adams. If she loses, that's still gonna be her playground. So I definitely see that there's gonna be such infighting that I don't think he's gonna get anything done. And even if what policies can he truly get done? He'll be like the guy in Chicago who himself is a socialist, and he gets into power, and what socialist causes has he actually been able to pass? He's busy cutting the budget because they have no money.
Yeah.
So he can be a socialist all he wants, but when he gets in that office and the money men come to him and be like, "Listen, dude, we don't have any money for this. What's he gonna do?"
It's a great point, dude. It's a great point. Shout out to Ray Schneider's 999 to the podcast. He says nationally, with most police administrators, it's not about right or wrong, or even about money. It's all about power and the manic egos of those that possess and abuse it. That could sum up the New York City Police Department appointed management in one sentence. If you look them up, NYPD appointed leadership, there you go. Boom. That's what it is. They're manic egos, absolutely obsessed. That's why they're on here right now in this chat, fully obsessed, when they should be focused on running the New York City Police Department. It's like, let's focus on what John and Eric are saying. Good, this is unbelievable. I mean, it's crazy, you know. It's wild to think, you know. So speaking of the mayor race, State Senator Jessica Ramos, she goes on the New York City Retirees podcast. New York City retirees have been focused on this, keeping retirees in traditional Medicare instead of what's going to happen. So they actually sued. They've been successful. Eric Adams is still fighting it to keep retiree healthcare, right? To keep it up to what it was. And even as it is now, it sucks. But they're trying to make it worse, right? So it's like we're fighting to keep the shitty. We should be improving healthcare instead of we're fighting to keep it as bad as it already is. So, but whatever, that's besides the point. So Jessica Ramos is on there. Danny Holkauer, shout out to Danny Holkauer, was terminated from New York City Sanitation, won his lawsuit. Eric Adams is continuing to fight to keep him out of work. It's been going on for over 3 years. He should have been compensated and reinstated 3 years ago, along with myself, Marlon, and a lot of other people. So Eric Adams has been spending your tax money to overturn his suit and a lot of other suits. But he asked Jessica Ramos, will you compensate and reinstate fired city workers? Listen to what state senator and New York City mayoral candidate Jessica Ramos has to say.
Will Jessica Ramos reinstate workers who refuse to comply with the mandate? With the mandate for vaccines, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I mean,
thinking.
that's been a topic. Look, I am pro-vaccine. I am pro-science. Would I reinstate workers? I am willing to have that conversation with doctors. But I have not. We certainly are in the need to fill job titles, but we also can't. We want to make sure that we're keeping people safe at work. So let me wrap my head about that. I don't know. I've also seen people ask about back pay. I don't know that that's something that the city is going to be able to afford.
So we don't have the money, so we're not going to right the wrong that we did, even though we violated you and broke law and broke labor law. We don't have the money for that. And possibly we could hire you back, Marlon, but she wants to first consult with a doctor to make sure that you're not a danger to the other workers who some are and some aren't vaccinated. So they need to make sure that you're not a danger. What do you think about Jessica Ramos' statement?
Well, if that's her thinking, then have those guys gotten their boosters? Yeah, because they better have up-to-date boosters because they can get reinfected again. Yeah, that's something they don't want to talk about still. But I said on a tweet that I'll give it to her for her honesty in that she said they don't have the money for it. And even though there were commenters stating, and people like to bring this up, that they had money for illegal migrants. Well, they didn't. They don't care about illegal migrants. That money was a Ponzi scheme to keep up to keep those hotels and those commercial real estate properties from defaulting. And by preventing them from defaulting, you're also keeping up the illusion that the property tax is in a healthy situation. Because if those guys default, they're not paying their property tax. So that entire thing is a Ponzi. Okay, but isn't it mystifying that what we're in 4 years after that there's still people who are still stuck on it. I can't figure out whether this is willful ignorance on our part or it's just outright lying to us.
Mike, what do you think? She believes in science. Like, what do you think about science?
I wish she would have left that part out. Like, just leave the science part out. Dude, she's probably right with the money. Like, I don't know if the city can afford for the back pay, but look at the city put themselves in this situation. We shouldn't have got rid of all these people who refused to get the vaccine. To me, that was the stupidest thing ever done. And I think you guys were talking about it. It was Adams that could have kind of cut it off, right? Like, he could have ended it, but he didn't really do anything about it. He kept it going from what de Blasio was doing. I just hate that we're even in this mess, and it goes back to the manpower issue. If you're so worried about manpower, then, well, you shouldn't have let all these guys go, because that was a big hit for us as well, and there's no coming back from that, because a lot of those guys, like you and Eric and everybody, Marlon, like, these are guys that knew what they were doing and were experienced, and you cut them loose because of a fucking vaccine you didn't know anything about. That we shouldn't have put ourselves in that situation from the get-go. But I mean, the science remark, man, she's got no credibility after that.
I'm muting you in between. Your mic's picking up a ton of feedback, so when you're not going, just mute and unmute. I was getting a ton of feedback from Mike when he was talking. Yeah, no, I agree with you, but like, here's the thing that nobody's thinking about, right? Everyone's like, "Oh, the city doesn't have the money." It's like, no, they have the money. They have the money because here's the thing. The money for our salaries was already budgeted. It was budgeted 5 years ago. They didn't expect us to leave. Now, what Marlon says and what I say traditionally is they wanted to cut down the budget. So what they did was do this illegal mandate, which was basically a backdoor layoff to bring the budget down. But that money was already budgeted for us. And when Eric Adams came in, he could have ended it. It would have been no big deal. It wouldn't even, I wasn't off the books. Nobody was off the books. You know what I mean? It would have just been like, all right, you can come back to work. It's over. Forget about it. You know, maybe they would have had to give me a couple of vacation days. Like that would have been it. You know, and when the teachers, they would have had to give them about a month of back pay. So now that you're in the situation, it's like, well, the city could do anything and they never have to pay because they could say about the money, right? But not true. They just gave a settlement of $2.8 billion to people who failed a teacher exam, and they sued on the basis they didn't know they needed to be literate to be New York City teachers. So what Eric Adams did is he settled the lawsuit. He gave $2.8 billion settlement where most of them got a $2 million check. They got a full pension and health care for the rest of their life. They never worked a day for New York City because they didn't know they needed to be literate to be a teacher in New York City, even though you need a PhD. Oh, I'm sorry, you need a master's degree to be a teacher in New York City. So this is how frivolously they're throwing money on top of the $6.9 billion that we already gave out to illegals, on top of the $1.2 billion that they just signed. Why this contract is necessary, and this is why, like, I get beat up a lot by the MAGA people, and I voted for Donald Trump 3 times. I was Donald Trump when everyone was like, I don't like his tweets. I would just wish he would stop tweeting. Like, I was always with Donald Trump, but I'm going to call bullshit when I see bullshit. I see Tom Homan on the news always like, yeah, we're going to get everybody off. I'm locking up this one. I'm locking up that one. I'm like, dude, get off the fucking news and go do your job and shut up. Start getting all the illegals that are supposed to do. Go throughout the cities. Whoever's not complying with federal law, lock them up. I don't need to hear you on Fox News every day. I don't want to see you on Fox News patting Eric Adams on his head, dragging him around. They like basically Trump and Homan are walking Adams around like in the yard in prison, and they basically got Eric Adams holding their pocket, and he's walking around like, yes, boss, and that's basically what's going on right now. And so New York City under Trump, and I want all the people that have been beating me up over this, I want you to explain this to me. Under Trump, New York City right now just signed a contract for $1.2 billion to go to New York City Hotel Owners Association. Who do you think is in the New York City Hotel Association owners? I wonder. Do you think it's the Trump family? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I think that they're in there. So they signed it. And what's that $1.2 billion going towards? It's going to house illegal aliens. Weird. I thought we solved the problem. I thought Eric Adams has a 60-day renewal. So maybe this is the last year, right? Maybe this is the last year. We need this just in case. This is the last year. Oh, by the way, it has a 3-year renewal option. So not only are they continuing to, not only did they just put $1.2 billion towards illegal aliens again, there's going to be $1.2 billion again for the next 3 years. There's the money to hire back city workers, on top of the waste and the mismanagement in the Adams administration. If you had a DOGE style government in New York City, you had a mayor that came in here and was like, I'm going to be fiscally conservative like a Jim Walden, because it's not going to be Adams or any of the Democrats. It's not going to be any of them. They don't even know how to be fiscally conservative. They don't know money. Like, they've never held a real job. They never ran a real company. If you had someone to come in like that, you could find the money like this.
We had it with Bloomberg. Wasn't Bloomberg very he was very good with that.
And think about what Bloomberg did. If you remember at the time, I forget how long the teachers were out of contract. I think they were out of contract like over 10 years, dude. Like over a decade. So Bloomberg's like, listen, I'm going to settle the contracts with you. I'm going to settle contracts with you. But what we're going to do is I can't pay you the back pay right away. So I'm going to pay you the back pay over 8 years. You know what I'm saying? So and that's how it could be done. It could be something like this. But I don't even think it's that. I don't even think it's that egregious. Like, when you look at the numbers and you look at the amount of people, everyone's like, oh, it's going to be crazy money. I don't think so.
No.
I don't think it's going to be anywhere close to what we gave those teachers who sued and when they said they were illiterate. So it's insane to me to that. And then I hear Jessica Ramos talking about the science, and I'm like, what the hell? What planet do you live on? And you want to be the mayor in New York City? How are you even a state senator? What planet are you on? You're following this. You're not following the science. You don't believe in science. You don't even know it.
I wish these guys would just be honest with us, just be honest. If the city had said back then, like 2 or 3 years ago, hey, listen, we have a budget crunch, we got to put you on furlough, we got to put you out for a couple months. I wouldn't like it, but I would understand it, if they said, okay, you're gonna come back. But what they did to us is like ridiculous, and the fact that they just don't want to own up to the size of the problem now, and they want to talk around it and give any sort of excuse to justify what they did. It to me is like, it's like egregious, and I don't think we can ever have New York can't go back to being the old New York until we have that honesty and that again come to Jesus moment where it's like, oh, we screwed up, we got to fix this, we got to be honest with people, and we got to right the ship. And I just, with these people that are running like Ramos, I can't see how that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's wild. A lot of thing that's going around, and guys, we see it. So there's a bunch of videos. They look like they were texted to Jeffrey Maddrey of Lieutenant Quatisha Epps. I guess sexting Jeffrey Maddrey. We're obviously not putting that on the screen. But yeah, that's floating around. I guess Epps is going to do a special on the news. I forget what channel, maybe ABC 7 tonight, and then again I think on Wednesday, and I think Sal's having her attorney on Thursday. I mean, listen, I don't know what to say about it. All I know is that the whole situation was disgusting. A lot of people knew that there was complete overtime abuse, not only from Epps, but from hundreds of other people, and they did nothing about it, and they're all still in power, with the exception of Jeff Maddrey, who finally got out of the New York City Police Department. My personal opinion is everybody should be arrested, and then let's figure out who the victim is, because right now you all committed crime. That's my personal opinion on it. I don't know the details of who's a victim, who's not a victim. I know that a lot of laws were broken, and they were broken by a lot of people. So let's lock everybody up. We'll bring the squad in to debrief everybody and figure out what the hell's going on, and we'll see who's getting what charges, and then we could present that to the DA and see who they want to prosecute and who they don't. That's how I look at it. Mike, what are you thinking about that whole situation? The sex for overtime or the cash for ass program? Like, what are you thinking? Like, I'm not taking sides with anybody. I'm saying lock them all up.
Lock everybody up. I mean, just think about it. If it was any one of us, God forbid, in that type of situation, we would have been plastered all around, done already. I'm surprised Maddrey didn't try coming back after the strip pole video, because that was another wild thing. And again, nice girl, not knew her shit, but like, what are you thinking at the end of the day, especially being in that type of division you work in? Dude, this is just those videos you were referring to are mind blowing. I got up 4 o'clock in the morning to work out, and they were already texted to me before that in a group message, and I thought it was fake at first. I just couldn't believe it. The fact that that's happening at that top level of the NYPD is just out of control, bro, and that explains every other problem we have.
Yeah, it's like the focus isn't on your job. The focus isn't on public safety. The focus is on all your personal, It's like, it's crazy. Like, Marlon, what do you think about the situation? Like, I just can't sit here and like, I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to discount that shit didn't happen. I think it was absolutely wrong that you're a boss, and you're not only are you a boss, you run the whole damn department, and you're basically having sex with your subordinates, and you're giving them an unbelievable amount of overtime. And then the people that are in charge of monitoring it turn a blind eye to it. and then people in their office also do the same thing. What do you think about it though? Like what do you think? Like what are your thoughts? Like just from the outside.
Well, not only did they turn a blind eye to it, but they gave Jeffrey Maddrey awards. Remember on what day was it? The 8th, March 8th of 2024. The Police Women's Endowment Association gave Jeffrey Maddrey an award.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not. It was on Maddrey's. It was on the website. Maddrey posted it himself. It says, "Thank you for dedicated service to the NYPD News." And you see them pinning something on his uniform. But yeah, this job is just crazy. Whenever I see them virtue signaling on Twitter, like I just can't take him seriously anymore. You knew what he was doing all this time, and like everybody ignored it, and while virtue signaling that about women's rights and about giving women the opportunity and listening to women on the job, and here you are, Maddrey's doing his thing, So I'm like, I just can't take this job seriously when they're doing things like that, We have no standards, and in the lack of standards we're becoming a professional, like we're becoming a joke in professional law enforcement, and this is something the higher ups need to wake up here before this goes any further.
And then in the failing upwards, which is a recommendation I have for you, John, if John Shell, we know you're not retiring, but like if you were and you were starting your national PCAST, Marlon, please mute your mic in between, bro. It's killing me. I muted already. But if you were starting your national PCAST, what we would call it is Failing Forward. That's a great name. I like Crumbs and Street Thugs. I think that's a great name for the podcast. That sums it up for everybody. But Failing Forward is traditionally what it should be called. And again, we've seen a detective, a driver that was a detective specialist, never investigated a case, never caught a case, promoted all the way to first grade detective. And then he was given an assistant commissioner title, but remained all the benefits of being a first grade detective, including getting overtime, which is not written into the law, which is basically illegal. And then he was promoted to deputy commissioner, still accrued overtime, still stayed in the traditional method of earning pensionable money and overtime towards a police career. And now that person is a deputy mayor. And who we're talking about is Kaz Daughtry. Failing Forward. Kaz Daughtry was also caught up in this overtime corruption scandal because numerous people that fell under him, that worked directly for him, were transferred away from him. And people left because of the egregious amount of overtime that they get. And it was alleged that they were doing overtime from the house as well. So now he's a deputy mayor. And I'm sitting here and I'm saying, where is his retirement paper? His retirement papers should be brought back 2 years from the date that he was assistant commissioner. He should have separated from the New York City Police Department, out of the uniform pension system. He should be only accruing into his new role as a civilian in the New York City Police Department. And I'm bringing this on past history of what we've seen. We saw at one time Chief Shea, Dermot Shea, retired out of the New York City Police Department to become, I believe, the Deputy Commissioner of Operations or the Deputy Commissioner of Crime Control Strategies. I forget what he became. But that was under Bratton. And then within the year where you're allowed to come back to the New York City Police Department, within the year, he came back and was promoted to 3-star chief. That has not happened with Kaz Daughtry. Kaz Daughtry today should be vested from the NYPD. Do you guys agree or disagree? Marlon, what do you think?
Yeah, he should be, but that goes along with the rules. The rules don't apply in this administration. All the norms of the prior administration don't seem to matter here. But it strikes me, isn't it odd that like Kaz is so well protected, on this job. Like every year, this guy's getting a promotion for just walking in the door, and I just can't understand why it is. Is he related to you think he's related to Reverend Daughtry, and that's why? I mean, it couldn't just be because he's Marjorie's protege. I just don't understand why.
I mean,
it's like even
I think there's a personal relationship between him and Eric Adams as well, and you know, and I think like a close personal relationship, like more than friends. You know?
I mean, just think of it. The media, everybody's basically said that this guy is kind of undercutting all the police commissioners, and yet Adams is now, instead of Adams, like instead of him saying, oh, okay, no, the PC's in charge, he keeps promoting Kaz, and now he's promoting Kaz clearly above the police commissioner as the mayor, as the deputy mayor of public safety. So it's like I don't understand what does this guy have over Adams that Adams keeps, he keeps rewarding him for just walking into the door.
What do you think about it, Mike?
I agree, man. This guy wasn't really a go-getter in his career at all. He didn't do anything to really deserve any of these pushes. And listen, if you're going to be given that title at the end of the day, you should have to resign like everybody else did and take it the way you're supposed to. Being allowed to fall under a first-grade detective, you're double dipping, and you're making, I think, way more at the end of the day than you would as an actual deputy mayor or commissioner or whatever. Marlon's right. The rules don't apply for all. It just applies to some. And that's, again, with consistency and the problem in the NYPD.
But, well, his salary now is even higher than before. So is he going to be making overtime as a deputy mayor now?
Why not, right? He's Kaz. He can do whatever he wants. It's crazy, man. And then you think about, like, they nickel and dime the squad guys that are out there catching all these cases, and they're getting their overtime ridiculed, and you have stuff like this happening. And it's, again, another reason why people don't want to come to DB anymore.
Yeah. So Adams puts out this video of like Kaz is the deputy mayor explaining why he's the deputy mayor. He looks like he ate somebody. Like he might have ate one of his drivers.
That's what I said. He must be eating well.
He looks like he ate one of his drivers. Like he's gone. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, Kaz knows where the bodies are buried. I think Kaz might be one of the bodies. He might be one of the victims. I don't think that these guys, like, I don't put anything past Eric Adams and his crew. I don't know what they're doing. I think that they're deviants, all of them. I don't think that this what they do. I don't think what they do to women is just slow alone to women either. I think it's to little boys who are groomed, who I think I do. I'm not like I stopped holding punches a long time ago. I stopped saying, oh, I'm gonna be nice. This is what I think. Yeah. I think that Kaz potentially could be a victim. I mean, he looks stressed out. He looks like he ate somebody. Let's listen to what now Deputy Mayor Kaz Daughtry's got to say.
I'm Kaz Daughtry, and I'm proud to serve as the Deputy Mayor for Public Safety. For 19 years, I have served New Yorkers and made our city safer at the New York City Police Department. As Deputy Commissioner for Operations at the NYPD, I was responsible for overseeing critical situations and deploying our technology innovations such as the NYPD drone program. This helps save lives and protect our officers across the 5 boroughs. I'm excited to bring this cutting-edge technology and strong community partnership to the city's entire public safety apparatus.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me either, John. These guys all have a history of hanging out with some guys who are like really shady and deviants themselves, like Diddy, and there are those allegations that Corey Pegues already put on Marjorie about him trolling for prostitutes in the 114 in the early 90s.
Bro.
So it's there's also a connection to a certain billionaire whose name I won't mention on here because, But if you were to look on my Twitter, I've mentioned him plenty of times, and if you Google him, you'll find plenty of allegations of that are really like that not good. You know?
Yeah, it's crazy stuff, people. Crazy stuff. Yeah, I don't know. You guys, Mike, you got anything before we get out of here? We're gonna start to close it out.
I mean, if you watch Kaz's video, it almost looks like a Saturday Night Live skit you're watching, right? It's like I'm waiting for somebody to break out in a joke, because it's to me that's such a bullshit thing to watch him talk about all his accomplishments, but he only lists the NYPD drone program. So I don't know, man. I just feel like we're in bad shape here. It's gonna get worse.
It's yeah, I don't know, man. It's wild to watch. It's funny. And so for those of you that don't know, we're not going to show the video, but the video of Epps is basically, there's two of them. One of them I don't recommend watching. There's another one where there's another one that's like super pornographic, but the other one is she basically says, "Oh, Mr. Madry, Jeffrey, do you want me to come sit on your face?" And so, like, obviously that was texted to him and he leaked it somehow, or it was leaked from his phone. I don't know. So, you know, that's what's floating around. So crazy stuff's happening. Marlon, anything before we get out of here? Anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, it's going to be a wild week with that. I think she's doing an interview. Is it tonight at 11 p.m.? Yeah, so it's going to be a wild week with that, you know. But something to keep your eyes on, something that I'm watching is, again, DOGE and what it's doing and the state of the economy with Trump, because I think you're actually seeing consequences in New York. It's just they're being kind of obfuscated and nobody's actually talking about it. But there are going to be consequences to what's happening with the economy, and it's going to be felt in New York, especially considering I said before we don't have any manufacturing in New York State, and the new manufacturing that's coming is going down south. It ain't coming to New York State, so keep an eye on that, because that's something that's taking up a lot of my attention right now. So.
Yeah, I don't love all the stuff that, I'll be honest with you, I don't love all the DOGE stuff. I feel like it's pitting of like class warfare, and basically what they're doing is they're demonizing government employees and pitting them against corporate employees. And I do think there's a ton of waste in government, and I think there's a way to go about it and do it. And what I watch, like, when I watch, you know, like dumb things like Elon Musk with a staff of like 40 to 100 people telling every government employee, "Oh, you better email me by the end of the day or you're terminated." First of all, dude, you couldn't even figure that out. You couldn't even figure who emailed you or who didn't email you. Like, stop playing games, bro. Like, stop. Like, that's just, to me, it's like political theater. It's like completely political theater. And by the way, who elected Elon Musk? I didn't elect him. I personally would have definitely never elected Elon Musk, because politically he has some bad takes. He voted for Joe Biden. He voted for Hillary Clinton. Like, I'm going to support you. I don't think so. We don't align. We don't align politically. And I think it's opening up the floodgates for, in 4 years, if a Democrat comes in and then the pendulum swings back, what does that look like for the rest of America? And I'm like, I have no problem with cutting waste in government, but let's first identify it before we just chop people's heads off and demonize them. And I think that's what's happening in DOGE, and I don't like it.
If I may, John, I agree with you. In fact, something I've been thinking of is that what the DOGE is doing with those sudden, like forcing people to resign quickly, you know, is not too far off from what happened to us, you know. DOGE is trying to quickly cut.
It's exactly that, dude.
Cut government costs, and they want to skip the labor laws. You know, they want to find ways to go around labor laws and quickly get rid of people. And that's
what they got severance packages.
Most
they got severance packages, and then they got and some of them even got buyouts. So unlike us, but like fire me over an email, yeah, that's exactly you're flouting labor laws now. And now, like, you know, everyone's like, oh, the government. I could get fired in 2 days. I got like all these, I got a lot of friends that are in the corporate world. I could get fired in 2 days. I'm like, I get it, but you're not just getting fired out of no reason. Like the president of the United States comes in and says, you know what, we don't need CEOs in the insurance field, or we don't need like people that do logistics. We're just going to fire you. Those people are terrible. And it's like, wait a minute, dude, I'm undercover right now, working on a sex trafficking case. And you're telling me if I don't email you by the end of the day that I'm going to get terminated. Like, what are you talking about? You know, it's like, there is waste, and there are people that don't deserve to be in government. And that's true in the corporate world too. And I'm like, so you're just chopping people's heads without understanding their job. And like, one of the things Musk put out is he's like, do you think it's a good idea that I ask people to email me or I terminate them? And I'm like, no, I don't think it's a great idea. I don't think it's a good idea at all. I think you need to actually get a team of people and go agency by agency, find out what they do, go into the in-depths and gut it like he did with Twitter. That's one company. You're talking about having millions and millions of people email a staff of 40. Like, it's political theater, in my opinion. And it's exactly what they're doing. And I'm like, if you didn't like it when Joe Biden did this with the mandates, how are you cheering it on when Donald Trump does it? And I'm like, I'm not seeing it. You know, I'm like, I want to cut the waste. I do. But like, let's actually cut the waste and do it right. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what gets me though is the urgency, them doing it. That is something that's really got my attention, right? But also, I wonder if that's why they love Eric Adams so much, because Eric Adams basically did what they're doing now, you know. So, but
yeah, but he didn't save any money. He's drilling us deeper into a hole.
Yeah. Well. He is. I think he's again. That's a Ponzi scheme, and they're trying to keep afloat their system. But like a lot of what he did is like the dream, you know. You just quickly get rid of these employees, and we didn't even get like a severance package. So he's like even worse than what Musk is doing now.
Yeah, what do you think about DOGE, Mike?
I like the idea of it. I think some of the stuff they're doing is a little far-fetched. You're right. It's kind of like what was happening here in New York. I'm hoping they work out the kinks and it becomes, you know, something that we could all, you know, get behind. The idea is good. It's just, you know, like you said, they should actually go agency by agency, dig in and see what they could get rid of and what they can't. I think they came out with a bang. They had some hard-ons for certain people and just went off. So hopefully it gets a little better.
Yeah, no, I agree. And listen, you know, I like that they're working to do it. I just don't always agree with doing something to do it, you know, like plan it out and do it. And I'm for cutting waste in government 100%. But I just don't like what I'm watching with the demonization. And I hear it often, like, oh, what do you care? You're not a government employee anymore. And I'm like, well, why am I going to group identify government employees? I know people that are invaluable to the economy and are invaluable to public safety. And like, you can't put a price on these people. And yet you're sitting here saying that they're wasteful in my tax money and I could get fired every day. And I'm like, I'm just not going to sit there and group identify every government agency or every government worker and say it's waste. Like, yeah, there's a ton of waste in government. And like the whole Elon Musk thing, I get him consulting. I don't like him acting as a boss because, you know, Donald Trump, one of the things he said and one of the reasons, I mean, I was never voting for Kamala Harris. I just couldn't, in good conscience. There was nothing I could do. But one of the things that Trump said was the days of having unelected bureaucrats run your government are over. And I'm like, well, how do you coincide that with Elon Musk? And then it's the same thing with the whole quid pro quo that honestly, he's probably going to wind up facing an impeachment over with Eric Adams because it was completely illegal. I mean, that was watching the dichotomy and that Homeland Security hearing is like, wow, I agree with the Democrats here, but they're so wrong about border policy. But I agree with the Republicans on border policy, but they're so wrong about Eric Adams. Was insane. I was like, this is insane to watch because it's all like political theater and it's just a mishmash of all this stuff. And I'm like, how do you correlate taking the mayor who wasted $6.9 billion to give to illegal aliens, welcome the entire world here. Basically, all of the contracts are shrouded in scandal. How do you correlate that with DOGE? How does that make sense with you saying this is the good mayor? This is the good mayor that spent 20 times more than the other three mayors sitting there, and saying that they're the bad mayors. But this guy, who was the highlight and the poster child and held the epicenter for the illegal for illegal immigration, corruption, mismanagement, waste, incompetence. How do you pat him on the head and say he's the good mayor? I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, so all I'm seeing now out of the administration is political theater, and that's okay, you know. And like, I'm getting beat up by the MAGA world, and I really don't care, because I'm like, you know what? I said it in 2020. Why is he handing the country over to an elf? I don't even know who Tony Fauci is. I know his cousin because I go to his restaurant often, and he says he's an idiot and not to trust him, and that he's a liar. So why is Donald Trump saying that I got to listen to this guy and 6 feet apart and all that shit? And like, that's what America is. America is, in my opinion, America is not us electing someone and then putting our hands behind our head and going to sleep and like, Donald Trump's going to save us. It's like, no. We elect the person we think is going to do right, and then we annoy them all day long, and we pick them apart, and we're like, hey, you work for us. What's going on with that? We don't like that. Do that. Do this. And so, like, the MAGA crowd is like, honestly, they're woke at this point, in my opinion. I'm like, you talk about the people on the left who will follow and do anything that Joe Biden or Kamala Harris said, or Eric Adams said, or Andrew Cuomo said, and you guys do the same shit. So you're woke too, because you can't have a nuanced thought on anything.
No, you're right. You have that far right and that far left, and there's very few people that are in between there. And that's, I'm a Trump guy. I do not like the whole Eric Adams thing either. There's got to be a reason behind it. I don't know what that reason, the real reason is yet, but there has to be, right? I mean, you would think there's got to be something beneficial towards the greater good, we hope. But I honestly thought when Trump was getting in and this was happening, I thought Adams was done for. Thought it was over. And to see that like weird alliance go down, is it because Adams had nowhere to go? Trump really hates that left that much. They met in the middle on it. It's a weird thing, man, to see, But I'm a Trump guy too. I'm not a big fan of the whole Eric Adams team. Like, it's very weird to me and what's happening in New York.
Yeah. Marlon, any last thoughts before we wrap it up, brother?
No, that's all. Everyone in the chat, hope you guys have a good day as well. So thanks for having me on again, John. And you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys. Stephen S., just before we get out of here, his cousin is Tony Fauci. He owns La Fontana on Amboy Road across the street from Farrell High School.
Good spot.
Is it La Fontana? It's La Fontana. Yeah, La Fontana.
Yeah.
So, that's before we get out of here. So, all right, and we appreciate everybody. Thank you guys. Mike, thanks for joining us. Marlon, thanks for coming on. Thanks for that research. I'm actually writing an article about it. I'm going to cite you in it about the research that you came up with. I'll give you a buzz after. Check out 1205 Sal Greco show. He's going to have Serena Townsend on. There it is, La Fontana. Yeah. Great spot. Good food. So he's going to have Serena Townsend on. They're going to be delving into actually the Eric Adams case and the pardon and going into that. So that should be an interesting episode. They're going live. Sal's doing lives now. Probably going to do Monday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Thursday. We haven't worked that one out yet, but definitely on Thursdays. We've got another show coming. Obviously Wednesday. Myself, Eric should be with us on Wednesday. We'll be interviewing, like I said, retired Sergeant Detective Squad who ran homicide in the Bronx, Jonathan Frederick. So we're going to be doing an interview with that. We got a lot of political candidates lined up. We might have to speed up, do a couple more interviews in there. But check out 1205 today. Wednesday, me and Eric are back. Executive Perspective will be Wednesday, 5:05. So I appreciate all you guys. We're gonna end with Eric Dim on News Nation. We're not gonna come back after that. Mikey G says, John, when are you guys going to interview me? Mike, I'm telling you, if I showed you the list of people that are going to come on here, we're going to get to everybody. I'm telling you. But it's just I'd be lying if I said we're gonna get to you next week. I'll be lying to you, but we're gonna get to you, brother. So everybody, prayers for Derek Dim. Let's stay strong. Let's stay positive. Let's keep it going. And that's it, people. Finance Unfiltered. We'll be back at you 12:05. See you guys Wednesday morning at 8:05.
And we know American officers go above and beyond to help others. Introduce you to a retired NYPD lieutenant who is giving up everything to save his son from a rare aggressive form of pediatric brain cancer. He and his wife cashing out their 401ks, maxing out their credit cards, living in an RV right near the hospital. Their incredible story, their message when we come back live. Retired NYPD Lieutenant Eric Dim is no stranger to fights, but now he and his family are facing a new battle, his son Derek's rare pediatric cancer. 1 year ago, 7-year-old Derek was diagnosed with DMG. It's an extremely rare brain cancer impacting just about 300 kids every year. The family trading in their dream backpacking tour through Asia for an RV right near the Los Angeles Children's Hospital. And treatments for Derek are very expensive. Eric saying the grueling tests have a heavy financial burden, forcing the Dims to cash out their 401ks, to max out their credit cards, going broke, doing whatever it takes. Eric is not giving up the fight, and he is joining us now live. Eric, it's an honor to speak with you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me and telling the story. I appreciate it.
Can we start with how is Derek doing? What is his prognosis at this time?
Well, Derek is good spirited. Right now, unfortunately, the prognosis, it's not curable at this time. So we're trying to keep him strong and stable in hopes that we could find a cure. So Derek's in good spirits. He's strong. He's eating well, but he's home resting, and he's right now receiving in-home hospice care as we speak.
I can't imagine this situation. And I know you retired from the NYPD. You sold your house to go on this backpacking tour, this dream. Can you put into perspective for us going from that trip to camping in an RV near the hospital? Could you even process this diagnosis and this fight?
Sure. I retired from the NYPD as a lieutenant. I wasn't home much, obviously being a cop in New York City. I had the opportunity to retire September 2022. Here I was, an adventure with my wife and my kids, and we headed down the East Coast in a small RV, spending most of our time outdoors. And then we decided to head to Asia. It filled all the boxes. We got into Buddhism. I trained in jiu-jitsu, and had an opportunity to compete myself. Derek was competing in jiu-jitsu. It was an amazing adventure. And then within seconds, our lives have changed. And that was about a year ago from now.
Yeah. I know you say Derek has shown just incredible courage, that he is your hero, and you're a former Marine and NYPD lieutenant. That takes bravery. Does watching your son battle cancer, does that give you a different frame of mind for what courage looks like?
Yes. Well, it makes me stronger because any opportunity, if I'm tired, getting medicines, if I feel, how much more can we do this? How much more funds can we exhaust? There's no cost. It's priceless when it comes to your children, because the bravery that Derek has shown is exemplary. He's my hero. I look at him, look at that picture, strong boy training jiu-jitsu, and that's a spirit that he still holds inside. So that's a spirit that will never take away. That's a strong boy. He's a hero. I am so proud.
And a GoFundMe is set up for your son's medical bills. The goal is $600,000. When we last checked, it was 88% of the way there. I'm hoping we can put that up on the screen so our viewers can take a look. What does it mean to you that so many people are willing to help? And let me ask as well, I mean, every American can understand crushing medical bills in this country and what it feels like to battle with insurance. What kind of financial strain are we talking about here for you and your family?
Well, it's a battle that no one is prepared for. Being employed by the NYPD and retiring from the NYPD, I had full medical, full dental, I have prescription. And you figure it would be the best. But unfortunately, you find out where the rubber meets the road. And when a child or anyone faces a disease like this, there's unexpected expenses that you just wouldn't imagine. We paid $5,000 for a prescription for 30 days. We were facing $40,000 for a prescription for 30 days. The deductibles, the co-pays, just the expenses that are associated with this type of disease are exhausting. And as a parent, you'll do whatever it takes. If that means sleeping on the street, we'll do it. Whatever it takes, there's no measure.
There's no measure for your son. I hear that. Eric Dim, I know that you are in the process of what must feel like firefighting, you and your family. I so appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. We'll be putting the QR code and that GoFundMe information on newsnationnow.com as well, so people can go and help. Thank you so much, and wishing you and your family all the best.
Thank you for having me. Fight cancer. God bless everyone. Thank you.
You as well.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.